Here we are again. Bloodlines back at it on the beautiful, sexy couch at Saint Vitus. You know, the one that we talked about last week with Howard Jones. Yeah, the sunburnt couch. We're sitting here with a man who's not Howard Jones, but actually the lead singer of Rivers of Nile. We're here with good old Jake D. How you doing there, Jake D?
I'm doing pretty good, Derek. How you been, man? It's been a little while since I've seen you, man.
Yeah, it's been 2 years.
It's been 2 years, and this couch has obtained a lot of different levels of sweat and awkwardness. I'm glad we can be here.
All places. I'm glad we could be awkward together, all three of us
together.
Big comfy couch.
Yeah.
Feel all the love of events.
Big comfy awkwardness. You know.
Ooh, awkward couch love.
Awkward couch love.
But this is what happens when we're not seeing each other. So anyway, getting on with the circle of life. We're gonna go right into the questions. So, to start, Jared Klein, obviously good old Jared. He recently came into Rivers, right after the other three guys, right after Dylan Potts, Alan Balamut, and of course Ron Nelson.
Yeah.
And what caught your attention about Jared's writing and his drumming techniques that made you decide you wanted his full contribution to Rivers of Nile? And also, how much future material did you take into consideration before recruiting him into the band?
Okay. Well, to lay it out, how we kind of got Jared, and how we heard about Jared. Some buddies of us in Revocation actually. Suggested. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Dave.
Some buddies of ours in Revocation basically lent out an arm and said, hey, we know some people, Jared being one of them and Todd being his brother, that would be awesome drummers to help, fill the place of Dylan Potts, after his departure. And at that point, it wasn't so much a level of desperation, but it was a level of seriousness of needing a drummer. And if the guys at Revocation are going to recommend someone,
then you listen.
Yeah, you usually listen and you take their word for it. So them being our boys, we were like, yo, let's definitely see what this is about. And sure enough, we started talking to Jared, started working with Jared, sending him the material that we had for I guess there was some material that was for, I might not remember correctly, but either from Monarchy, the beginning of Where Owls Know My Name, and we had him rehearse a lot of stuff. And we actually had a tour that we were going to initiate him into the band with that fell through, that was supposed to go to Mexico. But he ended up jumping right on board for the next one we had right after that. And he's been a huge integral part to the band. He's a great dude. He's hilarious. He has a good amount of energy to him. He goes above and beyond, to help us all out and get things done. And he's a phenomenal player. He knows his stuff.
It clearly shows. I mean, it's your third album out with Metal Blade. It's your first time that you landed on Billboard, number 61 out of 200, which is a phenomenal freaking thing for the band.
Thank
you. Where Owls Know My Name is already an early contender for album of the year. That just blows both our minds, actually all of our minds,
Absolutely.
Considering you went from Monarchy, back in 2015, and then before that it was the Conscious Seed of Light, and it was just
yeah, absolutely. It's things have taken a sudden turn for us, and as far as the attention that's being put on us because of this new record. And, coming from my point of view, and I think I can speak for the rest of the guys too, we're just incredibly, grateful, for the amount of attention that's been put, on us right now with this new release. And to be even considered to be one of the best albums of this year is awesome for us, and we're so excited to see where this goes. And we can only hope for the best, for sure.
Oh, well, you are getting the best.
Yeah.
And I mean, from me personally, as a photojournalist, and I've been covering you guys for around 7 years. I get a very cinematic vibe when I listen to Owls. Woo! I'm just gonna do that every time. Every time I say Owls, we're just gonna go, woo! That's it. And hey, we could totally do that.
Oh, brother, yeah. Okay. We're gonna run with this. That'll be a whole different interview.
Swing. This album was a complete change up from the last couple albums prior. Is there a theme or a concept that inspired the writing for Where Owls Know My Name? It makes it so surreal compared to, the other, besides Monarchy and the Consciously of Light, and not only that, but the singles that you put out too. Like, what drove that whole process for this record?
Well, this is definitely, I can give you a roundabout summary as far as like themes, like direct, deep, detailed information about the theme. This would be more of an Adam Biggs question, but I can tell you that the direction of the album lyrically and musically, and from what I gather and what I know from the guys in my band, correlates very much with the theme and the feeling and emotion of the season that's it's associated with, which is fall. And there's one basic lyrical concept going on in this story that's being told on this record, and it is surrounding the story of an individual who's lived for what would be considered an eternity, and to some degree he lives an immortal life in which he is the last person on this planet, and he carries and inhibits the consciousness and the memories of everything that has now passed before him, and he continues to move on, and it's kind of like a story of what he's going through on a very personal, emotional level. And I think it's something beyond the story, something that dives into the depths of Adam Biggs and myself on our personal level, going beyond the story, But that's kind of like a lyrical, that's a solid, I think that would be like a solid direction as far as like where the lyrical content is going for this record. As far as like the singles that we chose to release, I think that's something that kind of was less about what the story was saying, and because by that point the whole story is written, the whole album's written.
Yeah, your first single for this record was a Home. Last time I checked, am I correct on that?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I believe it was either a Home or a Silent Life.
Okay, see, if he can't remember, then that means I'm wrong. So it's okay though.
There's a good possibility that it was a Silent Life that was the first single that was released.
My mistake.
I think a Home was released afterwards with the video.
Okay.
But again, the Silent Life, I think, had a good composition of what our fans already know of us musically, and then it also offered a great kind of like curiosity of elements of like what we have on this record to kind of like help people re-identify themselves with our new sound, as far as the third album being, with the saxophone and stuff like that. So
speaking of that was
saxophone. Let's talk saxophone, actually.
Okay, let's go. Let's talk sax.
Yeah, because I mean, listening to the album, I was like totally impressed. I was like, wow, this is different. And I was like, what, we're gonna interview him. Let's ask him about that because I, been wanting to know. Zach Strauss provided the saxophone tracks for several songs and even had cello and trumpet. With saxophone and more pronounced elements of jazz taking their places in the progression of heavy metal, did you consider other instruments to build the atmosphere background of this album, or was the saxophone completely by chance?
I'm not Brody Utley, but I can tell you what I know as far as like the writing process and like where everything kind of like fell into place from what I gather, from what I know from my guys. As far as like just speaking about the saxophone per se, Brody records bands at home, and one of the bands that he recorded.
That's how he met Zach.
Yeah, that's how he met Zach Strauss.
Yeah.
And Brody was just like, hey, we have a couple tracks that we feel could really use something else and what we're contributing musically, and it'd be awesome if you come by and like just lay down some sax, see what it sounds like. And I think from that point, it spiraled into like considering other instruments, or at the same time they very well could have had those instruments in mind, as far as like the writing process went down the line. I know, for example, like Terrestria 3 on this record, the cello was something.
One of my favorite songs on that album.
Yeah, very cool song. Kind of different from anything we've done. But again, I think this is another one of those moments where like we had a kind of like a rigid outline of that we wanted to do different things.
Yeah.
Clearly making a track like this, we're pushing our boundaries. But I think in the studio, Grant, who was a part of the recording process from, God, it's slipping my mind right now, from, oh my God, God, I'm having a brain fart. Atrium Studios.
There you go.
So Grant, who recorded my vocals for the first, second, and third record. I'm sorry, the first one. The second and third record. Sorry. And also has worked with us on the earlier stuff too with Carson. He played cello for a very long time, from what I gather, what I know. And they were recording, writing, putting Terrestria 3 together, and Grant was like, "Yo, let me whip out my cello and let's just see what this does." So,
Why need sax when we could break out the cello?
Yeah.
Break out the cello.
So that's my small percent of understanding of the instrumentation. Zach
did a lot for the record. I mean, he did 3 solos from the last I checked. And then I like how he's just staring at me like, "You tell me about my album. Please do that, Derek." It's like, please tell me more about this.
Please tell me what you know.
Zach did 3 solos on that record, and then he provided background for 2 songs, I want to say. I thought it was... No, it's 2. It's 2.
Yeah, again, I'm not...
You're not Brody.
I'm not Brody. Yeah, these are questions for Brody, exactly. If you want those precise answers.
Got you. No, it's understandable. I mean, I heard it in some of the tracks, and I've been a sax fan for a while, and I mean, the first time I was brought into it was with Tesseract when they did Altered State, and they had saxophone in there, or even I think Woods of Ypres had a little bit of saxophone in there too. So as soon as I heard sax for this record, I was, this is
absolutely. Cling right to it.
Yeah. For all I know, Bill Klein could have done sax for your record.
We could have, but we didn't want to have any, we don't want to associate ourselves with the Clintons right now. Any political party at that.
Burn!
I mean, well, we definitely don't consider Rivers of Nihil like the sax band. I mean, not even remotely close. But you have also taken heavy metal to a new level in like a totally brutal way. And we know the future holds endless possibilities for Rivers of Nihil's music. So what's your take on fans of heavy metal having difficulty, perhaps being open-minded to its evolution?
Well, it's an interesting question. Something I speculate about from time to time. I wonder, what sometimes, what kind of sparks people to be more innovative and allow the music to evolve, and then also on the other hand of things, what causes people and bands to sound the same album after album after album. I think it could be a mixture of different things. It depends on where your creative output is grounded in. If a musician who's writing an album with a bunch of other musicians in a band, and they're very connected to their creative touch with music and what it means to them, they're gonna channel that through their own creativity, through their own ideas. If a band, not to even say any particular band, just giving examples, but if a band who's very connected to the demand and the calling of what their fans want, but they're also still staying very true to their own sound, but they know that their sound is fundamentally a part of what their fans enjoy, then their sound maybe might stay the same and might not push the boundaries. This is, again, I don't play anything in this band but scream vocals. But if I were to give my full honest opinion about this, I think the thing that causes bands to evolve is just an openness to wanting to grow and wanting to try new things, wanting to experiment, stop making the ability to not make the same decisions every time. Right. Try and do things different.
Exactly.
And I think when bands do that, you'll learn a little bit more about what you do like and what you don't like too. Some things work, some things don't.
And then you stand out as a band too. I mean, it's just speaking about the evolution, you stand out, and people are become more interested. That's why, the way I look at it, it's like, a lot of people say, oh, well, this is like different. This is not really heavy metal. It's like, it totally is. I mean, it's just an evolution, and music always evolves.
Absolutely. And, I think something as diverse and as personable as metal is, because it exists in a platform, in a community, in a market that, for the most part, isn't over-influenced, isn't overly controlled to the point of like where the musicians really do have the freedom of doing what they want and creating what they want. I think, if anything, being a part of that kind of genre that has that freedom, it makes the most sense to take advantage of that and try to grow with the music, So, absolutely. I think the cool part about heavy metal music that makes it heavy is when it's not heavy.
Right.
Like the ability for something to be heavy sometimes has less to do with the heaviness and has more to do with what's not heavy. So you can find that balance within listening to one music passage. You listen to, any typical death metal record straight through that's nothing but death metal. It's still fucking heavy. But if you have the composition of something soft to something to heavy and also different instrumentation in there, you expand the palette of what you're receptive to and what you're diving into. So I think heavy metal has such a wide end potential to be as diverse as they can, imagine. So,
my thoughts exactly.
Yeah.
And now for my final thought. No, I'm just kidding. Speaking, because that went on the deep end, and that's.
No, I love it. That was a great answer, because I've always wanted to have these conversations with people, and there's always just like this very fine line where it's like, people have their own opinions and they're very strongly opinionated, and sometimes you can't have these conversations, especially like with musicians themselves, because they have a certain way of how they want to produce their own music. So.
If I may add one other thing to this, I think like bands who strive to be creatively individual, are bands that just are really, really in tune with the music for the right reasons. And I don't mean that you can't be in tune with music for, I don't mean you're in tune with the music for the wrong reasons if you make the same record over and over and over again. I don't mean that. It just means that you're allowing yourself to stay open to different possibilities, and as simple as that.
So, open-mindedness leads to the evolution of the band and the sound.
Yeah, you're helping the creativity of metal in general.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with that one.
Yeah. So. There you go.
And, now that we're on the level of creativity and on this discussion, let's talk about a creative individual that we all know and love. So I'm going to go on the deep end this time and talk about a little young man named Andy Thomas from Black Crown Initiate. Hi, Andy. I miss your beautiful face on stage.
Hi, Mr. Thomas.
Hi, Mr. Thomas.
Can't wait for you.
So Andy Thomas of Black Crown Initiate provided backup vocals for, Where Owls Know My Name. And for the single, and he was also his sister, Sarah Thomas, also provided vocals for Subtle Change.
Yes.
So is there a potential return collaboration where Black Crown Initiate returns to the music fold and they decide to just say, we're back, bitches? Like, can we see Rivers and Nile doing some stuff for them?
Are you talking about Black Crown Initiate specifically?
Yeah.
I can't give anything away, but they're definitely, working on something right now.
I knew it.
Excuse
me, giddy moment. All right.
That's all I can really say, I don't think I'm at the liberty to reveal anything else, but
no, we don't need that. You just said maybe. Maybe is always a yes. So that means
they're right around the corner, man.
Oh, 2018 is gonna get really interesting, man. And speaking of guest appearances on the new album, you also had Justin McKinney of the Zenith Passage, correct? The Zenith Passage? Okay, good. I got that right. He did guest guitars on Old Nothing. So how did that come together, and were there other musicians you would have liked to have collaborated with for this record and keeping in mind for the future?
Yeah, that's something I think that Bernie and John kind of like had figured out with Justin McKinley, and it's kind of interesting. The solo he put on that song on Old Nothing, is really cool how it came together, and it's like kind of weird because speaking directly about that song, there's actually a vocal part that kind of like goes with the solo at the same time. And it's not very often in music where someone screams or sings over a solo, kind of like to match up with it. But the way I kind of wrote the vocals for that song, and by the time he recorded his solo, there wasn't this clear interpretation of where my vocals were going to end and when the solo was going to start. So when we finished the product, it somehow like matched up where it fit, and we moved it around a little bit in the studio, but for the most part, it kind of like fit, oddly enough. So as far as that part, I think that was something that Brody and John like had in mind. He's a good friend of ours, and we wanted to have him on the record. As far as like other artists that we talked about having, I think that's something that kind of comes up like right around the time that we're writing the record. I don't think we like have set people in mind that we want to have perform on the record. I personally would have loved to have an old friend of mine, Nate Johnson, do some guest vocals on this record. Something that didn't happen.
Wait, Nate Johnson?
Nate Johnson.
Fifth One Autopsies, Nate Johnson?
I'll refer to him as Deadwater Drowning, Nate Johnson.
Okay, there we go.
That's where I remember him from. That's where I know him from. But
well, I met him with Fit, so
right on.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So you never know what's in the future with that. So, and then there's plenty of outside of my own personal taste of what I would like. I'm sure Brody, Biggs, John, Jared might have other people in mind in the future too.
Eminem on the next record. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, you want to field this one or? Oh, okay. Excuse me. All right. Anyway, in retrospect, working on both Monarchy and Where Owls Know My Name, how was your experience working at Atrium Studios and their engineers with Carson and Grant? And I know Carson and Grant worked on the first record with you.
The second record.
Oh, it was the second record. Okay, my apologies.
Wrong.
Yeah. You did that too. I guess we're even then. All right. That's fine. Yeah, I know. No. It's been too damn long. This is what 7 years does to you. You get tired of each other. It's a reunion.
It's a reunion.
Yeah, it is. But working at Atrium with Carson and Grant, what was it like watching them mold the sound for, Rivers?
It's a very familiar and very comfortable, experience watching them, and working with them. Like we just discussed, we recorded a previous record with them, and we also have demo that we recorded with them. It was mostly Carson, and when you had a different, I think it was Century Studios at the time, and it was in a different location before it became Atrium. So it all ties down to the fact that we put a lot of trust in those guys. Those guys know us very well. They know our sound very well. We're very comfortable with those guys. They're fucking hilarious. They're easy to hang out with and talk to. And, if they have ideas, we're open to, hearing what they have to say, what they think. As far as me personally, talking about my role, I record vocals. I take my time with it. And I want to make sure everything is calibrated right, make sure everything is enunciated right, everything can be heard. And with my sound, Grant kind of knows what to expect going into the studio. Not to sound like a typical cliche vocalist, comes into a studio and makes things difficult, but me being hard of hearing and having the monotone voice I have sometimes, for people in the studio, that it crosses over as unfamiliar. It becomes sometimes a territory that they have to work around, figure out how to get my own performance out of me the best, and then also make our connection kind of lucrative. So again, Grant, Carson, they know me and they know us all so well, and through our own instruments and what we play. Yeah. it feels very relaxing, and you know, it's not a thing. You know what I mean? Going in there for us.
It's home for you.
It's a home.
It's a home.
A home.
No pun
away from
intended.
home.
Away from home. Away from home.
Good song.
Woo! And on that note, Rivers of Nihil are actually wrapping up this tour. They have one last tour stop, which is tomorrow out in at Reverb, and then you guys are going on tour again with Revocation.
Revocation.
You know, you'll be doing that in October. It's October, correct?
Yep. It's gonna be September, October.
September, October, and then you're flying out to Europe. And
Flying out to Europe.
You guys are wrapped up for the rest of the year.
Yeah, we wrapped up for the rest of the year. So yeah, that's pretty much what we're gonna be doing. We have the European tour is the Revo Part 2, and it's gonna be awesome. There's the lineup is fucking.
The
phenomenal.
lineup, yeah, the lineup is insane.
So,
I know that for a
we got
fact.
Surreption, Archspire, us.
Stop, because we don't have that tour. You know how many of my friends that were just so upset? They're like, wow, this is... Oh, it's a European tour. Never mind. We want that here. Because, well, you know, Surreption's on Summer Slaughter now.
Yeah.
And, you know, Archspire just wrapped up a tour with Oceano a couple months ago, so they're not coming back here. So, you know, Europe is going to be pretty fire.
Yeah.
Pretty fire.
It always is in the summertime, man. They got those festivals.
Yeah.
They know how to do things over there, you know what I mean? Not that we don't, but they have it down to like a fucking formula. You know what I mean?
Exactly. No, I definitely see that.
Yeah.
So
It's just a culture out there. That's
Yeah,
what
the culture is very prominent, very passionate. In case you guys don't know, Americans, they make their fucking shows in the holidays, okay? They take fucking off months in advance.
Yep.
So get with it, bitches.
get with the program. And on that note,
No offense, because I know you guys do too. Just saying.
On that note, thank you, Jake, for sitting down on the big, comfy brown couch that is Saint Vitus in Brooklyn for your show tonight. I really
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
It was always a pleasure. So, Derek Soto, Marissa Ann, co-host extraordinaire, Jake D, the man with the master plan, and we'll see you at another time on Bloodlines, probably on this big, comfy couch again. So, catch you later.